8.5 years ago, Gypsy Rose Blanchard could be described as a charming yet severely disabled girl who lived with her doting single mother in southwestern Missouri. The nearly toothless girl with a childlike voice and shaved head, fed by a feeding tube and confined to a wheelchair. Her mother, Dee Dee Blanchard, told neighbors and charitable organizations alike that these traits were the result of her daughter's wide array of terminal illnesses, from the developmental issues to muscular dystrophy and leukemia. But none of that was true. And it was only in 2015 when Gypsy Rose Blanchard set up the murder of her mother. How did it all happen? How a girl who was once described as sick took a whole different genre of actions. Let's find out. Gypsy was born in July 1991, although her birth year was unknown to her for most of her childhood. Rod Blanchard, who was Gypsy's father, was 17 when he married his pregnant girlfriend Claudine Dee Dee Piter, a 24-year-old former beauty queen and nursing aide. But they split up by the time Gypsy was born in Golden Meadow, Louisiana, and he said Dee Dee made it difficult for him to see their daughter, who, according to his ex-wife, had serious health problems. By the time her daughter was 3 months old, Dee Dee began to claim she had sleep apnea, prompting doctors to do tests that revealed no evidence of the disorder. This prompted Dee Dee to claim that an unexplained chromosomal condition was giving her daughter a variety of reported health difficulties, including the permanent mental capacity of a 7-year-old owing to brain damage from her early birth. By the time she was 8 years old, Dee Dee said her daughter had cancer, muscular dystrophy, seizures, asthma, hearing and vision problems, chronic ear infections, and other ailments.
Honestly, I really didn't know what cancer was. But I was going through so many medications and surgeries that I didn't question it.
These illnesses led to tons of medical appointments, with surgeries even being performed on this sick girl. While living in New Orleans, Dee Dee claimed Gypsy's birth certificate and medical records were destroyed in Hurricane Katrina's wake, so she relocated to her native Missouri, where her story started to gain traction. So what happened after that? It was only in 2008 when Habitat for Humanity built the duo a small home in Springfield. It was painted pink and had a wheelchair ramp. Gypsy and Dee Dee also received benefits that included charity-sponsored visits to concerts in Disney World. All along, Dee Dee continued to bask in the attention she received for being a devoted caretaker. The mother-daughter duo also received free flights to medical appointments and more. Dee Dee was consistently able to fool the public and doctors alike, securing treatment for issues even after testing, biopsies, and x-rays found no signs of the illnesses the mom insisted her daughter had. And it didn't just stop there. Dee Dee shaved Gypsy's hair, claiming that her hair would fall out regardless owing to her medicine. She had some of Gypsy's saliva glands removed owing to drooling, which the girl later claimed her mother caused before medical appointments. Dee Dee provided her daughter anti-seizure medicine, which caused teeth decay and eventual extraction, and she had tubes implanted in Gypsy's ears to treat ear infections. Dee Dee was extremely lovely and seemed to care deeply about her daughter. When Gypsy was old enough to speak, Dee Dee told her not to offer anything at their appointments as she was always the one recounting Gypsy's fabricated medical history. She also informed Gypsy's father, Rod Blanchard, that their daughter had a chromosomal abnormality, which had caused her numerous health problems. He praised Dee Dee for her diligent care. When members of Dee Dee's family realized that Gypsy didn't appear to require a wheelchair and inquired, Dee Dee and Gypsy went away. And not just the family members, but the doctors also became suspicious of the wheelchair. One of the doctors did become suspicious of the wheelchair-bound Gypsy, saying he found no signs of a reason she couldn't walk after seeing her support her own weight and conducting a myriad of tests. After discovering her history, the pediatric neurologist suspected Munchausen syndrome by proxy could have been the culprit, but he didn't think authorities would believe his word against that of Dee Dee, and later claimed he didn't have enough evidence. But what was Munchausen syndrome by proxy, and what did it have to do with Gypsy? According to the National Library of Medicine, Munchausen by proxy is an uncommon mental disease that can potentially be classified as child abuse. It occurs when a kid's caregiver, usually the mother of a small child, fabricates false symptoms of illness. In extreme situations, a caregiver may intentionally make a child sick such that they exhibit signs of disease. In some cases, the caregiver, like the mother or the father with such disease, may also fabricate their child's illness so that they can gain attention and sympathy from others for themselves. According to some experts, these stories are not being made by the caregivers for any financial gain, rather pity and consolation. This can be marked by actions from misrepresenting symptoms all the way to the purposeful harm of the dependent by ways of poisoning and infection. This disorder was present throughout Gypsy's life, if not given a name. Since being able to thoroughly examine it, she believes her mother had every recognized symptom, which led to abuse and ultimately death. The type of abuse that Gypsy said she suffered was unusual, as her mother was believed to have the condition of Munchausen by proxy, which led her to force Blanchard into unneeded medical treatments, including using a wheelchair and getting 2 salivary glands removed. But Dee Dee's abusive behavior towards Gypsy didn't change at all, but kept on growing with time. She not only mistreated her throughout her life, but also forged her daughter's birth date at least once to keep saying she was a teenager. She was noted for being the only one who spoke during medical sessions, and she refused to see any doctor who questioned her daughter's condition. In public, if Gypsy implied she was older or stronger than her mother claimed, Dee Dee would allegedly tightly grasp her hand as a warning to desist. When they were alone, she slapped her or hit her with her coat hanger. In 2011, Gypsy, who now knew her capabilities despite her mother's insistence, attempted to run away with a man, but Dee Dee found her and convinced her partner she was a minor. Gypsy claims her mom later shattered a computer with a hammer and said she would do the same to her daughter's fingers if she ever tried to escape again. After this, Gypsy was physically leashed to her bed for 2 weeks.
I talk about the first time that I tried to run away from home. Within 4 hours, I got as far as this outside of town. And within 4 hours, she brought me back to the home, chained me to the bed.
According to what Gypsy told about her story, she initially didn't plan to kill her mother, but she tried to get some outside help by running away. However, it was only after that when she found out that her mother will never let that happen, so she had to take a step for herself. The act, which is actually a true story and is based on Gypsy's life, shows that she wasn't allowed to go outside or do anything on her own. She was bound to stay inside the house, as her mother pictured the outer world as something evil and wild in her mind. As Gypsy grew older, Dee Dee began to lie about her age, going so far as to alter the dates on Gypsy's birth certificate to make her daughter seem younger. But Gypsy was still becoming harder for Dee Dee to control, and since she was already seeing the true colors of her mother, it was now time for Gypsy to take the big decision of her life, and this was the time when she met Nicholas Godejohn. Sometime in 2012, Gypsy met Nicholas Godejohn on a Christian dating website. They began a relationship online, and it wasn't long before they were promising each other forever and discussing plans to elope. In one of her text messages, which were shown in an HBO documentary, Mommy Dead and Dearest, Gypsy wrote, "I need to tell you something. I'm no model. I have a medical condition, so I can't walk. I have a chair I use. Is that an issue?" To which Nick responded, "Why would that be a problem? You are an angel in my eyes. It will never make any difference in how I see you from the inside out." In 2015, the couple arranged to finally have an in-person movie date in Springfield, and Gypsy recalled hoping that her mother would approve of Nicholas. However, it didn't go as she thought it would, and her mother really went crazy on her when she got to know about her daughter's relationship with a man. She got jealous because I was spending a little too much attention on him, and she had ordered me to stay away from him, Gypsy told a news source in an interview. She also mentioned that the argument of dating Nicholas stayed between Dee Dee and her for weeks. As soon as she got to know about their relationship, Dee Dee immediately started calling her things that she didn't imagine her mother would say to her a couple of years ago. But that didn't stop Gypsy from meeting her then boyfriend, and she kept meeting him in different ways, planning their life together. But those plans soon became violent, with Gypsy asking Godejohn to help kill her mother due to the abuse. In June of 2015, Nicholas came to the Blanchard home while Dee Dee was asleep. Gypsy hid in a bathroom and covered her ears while her lover stabbed her mother 17 times in her back. It was thought that it was Gypsy who provided her boyfriend with all the necessary things to kill her mother. Soon after her murder, a post on Gypsy and Dee Dee's shared Facebook page showed up that had everybody thinking as to what had happened with Gypsy's mother. The post also talked about what happened between Gypsy and Nick after her mother was put to death. Right after Dee Dee was killed by the hands of Nick, her neighbors Kim and David went up to see what had happened inside the house. When no one answered the phone or door, as they later told a news source, David peeked in through an open kitchen window. He noted seeing 3 wheelchairs, which, as far as he and Kim believed at the time, Gypsy couldn't go anywhere without. Kim called 911 and the police. Once the police secured a search warrant and got inside the house, they found Dee Dee stabbed to death in her bed early the next morning. Investigators determined she'd been dead for several days. Meanwhile, neighbors expressed shock and sadness to the Springfield News leader, with one man calling Dee Dee the nicest lady in the world and saying she used to invite the whole neighborhood over for movie nights in their backyard. At the time, Kim Blanchard told the publications that Dee Dee being killed was the worst heartbreak that you can think of. But who shared that Facebook post talking about Dee Dee's death? After some days when everything settled down a bit, authorities were able to trace the IP address of that creepy Facebook post that talked about Gypsy's mother's death and about herself as well. Later on, it was found out that it was no one but Gypsy herself who wrote the attention-grabbing messages on the social platform. According to her, she wanted the authorities to know that her mother had died. "I couldn't stand the thought of her just there," she continued, "because what happens if it would have taken months to find her? So I wanted her found so she could have a proper burial." She also recalled giving Nick gloves, duct tape, and a knife when he got to her house. According to her, she thought he would back off from killing her mother, but that did not happen. "I honestly thought he would end up not doing it," she told a news source while talking about how everything went down. She also mentioned that both Nick and her had some intimate time together in her bedroom after murdering Dee Dee, and then took about $4,400 from her safe and called a cab. Before traveling to Wisconsin by bus, they mailed the murder weapon and the cash to Nicholas's house. However, Waukesha County Sheriff's deputies took both of them into custody the same day her mother was found. The couple were transported back to Missouri and subsequently charged with first-degree murder and felony armed criminal action. But how was the truth about Gypsy Rose Blanchard's condition revealed? Gypsy was initially accused of conspiring with her mother to deceive others into believing she was sick in order to gain financial rewards. But it later turned out that this was not the case. "We really don't know the true background of this family," Greene County Sheriff Jim Arno told reporters at the time. "This is a tragic event surrounded by mystery and public deception." He said that, contrary to popular belief, Gypsy could walk. Another thing that they were not sure of was Gypsy's age. They weren't even sure how old Gypsy was, the sheriff added, noting that she was believed to be anywhere between 19 and 23. But as the entirety of Gypsy's shocking story came to light, investigators ultimately concluded that Dee Dee had spun a vast web of fraud and that her daughter was a victim of her sickness. So what happened to Gypsy afterwards? Acknowledging the abuse she suffered, prosecutors offered Gypsy a deal, and in 2016, she pleaded guilty to second-degree murder for her role in her mother's murder. She was sentenced to the minimum possible amount of time, 10 years in prison. According to Greene County prosecutor Dan Patterson, when someone looks at this case, they immediately know that it's a murder and a first-degree murder. But on the other side, it is also one of the most extraordinary and unusual cases that has never been seen before. The fraud started when Gypsy Blanchard was probably 4 or so, he said, and ended up a part of her entire life growing up. And I think if you look at her medical records and the way the doctor's visits were handled, it's clear that the person who spoke to the medical professionals and others was Claudine Blanchard. But for Gypsy, finding a new life in prison was everything, and she was doing so much better than before. And she even acknowledged that herself.
The best memory that I have in my entire life is the day that I got to prison and I got to go out to the picnic tables. And I'm like, I'm free.
Gypsy's attorney, Mike Stanfield, told the publication that his client was healthier after a year spent in county jail than she'd been in Dee Dee's care, back when she was taking medication that made her teeth fall out and undergoing unnecessary medical procedures. However, according to Stanfield, it was still a little difficult for him when he was compiling everything and going through all of Gypsy's previous records. Though he believed he could have justified Gypsy's actions to a jury, Stanfield said taking the plea was the right thing to do for everybody. And what happened to Nicholas Godejohn? Since Nicholas was the one who had actually killed Gypsy's mother with his own hands, he was sentenced to a lifetime in prison. Gypsy testified for the defense at Nick's 2018 trial, when his lawyers maintained that he was a troubled young man who believed he was rescuing his loving girlfriend from a horrible abuse situation. Under cross-examination, she stated that Nicholas was the dominant person in their relationship. The prosecution said that Nick was driven by passion and wanted to get his girlfriend's domineering mother out of the picture. Nick was convicted of first-degree murder. He is now serving life in jail, the mandatory minimum penalty for the crime, with an additional 25 years for armed criminal action. Where is Gypsy Rose Blanchard now? On December 28, 2023, Gypsy Rose officially got free from prison and is now living as a married woman. She married Ryan Scott Anderson, a teacher from Louisiana, in June 2022. He is 37, and Blanchard has confirmed the couple are living together in Louisiana. And that's all for this video, folks. What are your thoughts on it? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel and ring the bell icon to always stay updated with more of such interesting content. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.